Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. We got a recruiting show for you. We're going to talk all about it. All right, folks, we got 2 5-stars that are going to commit very, very soon, and we've got a couple of teams out there that have been stealing recruits.
Okay, Ralphie, you win this time, but we'll be back.
And they really like going after 5-stars. Now, the world has changed a lot over the last few years with NIL, transfer portal, all that kind of stuff. And paying players has kind of become normal. You know, a few years ago, that wasn't exactly kosher as we know at Tennessee. But yeah, we've got a couple of teams that are now becoming prominent, and they're also becoming problematic. And that is FSU and Auburn. See, they've been down for quite a while, especially FSU. You hadn't heard a peep out of them in over a decade. Not unlike the Vols until last year. Well, with this NIL money deal and all that going on now, FSU is surging. And Auburn under Hugh Freeze is starting to surge too. They've been flipping 5-stars. So they're going around and grabbing 5-stars out of other teams' commitments left and right. So we're going to get into the 2 5-stars that are going to be committing very, very soon. One of them is Williams Winery, and we'll talk about him a little bit, and I'll show you what everybody's saying.
Of lineman Williams Winery. He is nearing his commitment date set for August the 14th. You've got Oklahoma, Mizzou, Georgia, Tennessee, and out of the Big Ten, Oregon, all interested here. So what's the latest with his decision just over a week away?
Yeah, and I just talked to him shortly before going on the air with you guys here this week, and he says he has his mind made up, and he's going to announce his commitment a week from today. I think that when you look at the schools that are in best position, Missouri's certainly a program that is very much on the rise in this recruitment. Georgia is one that's been a mainstay. His official visit the first weekend of June really thrusted them into fantastic position. Then Oklahoma is one that has always been considered one to keep an eye on. Tennessee and Oklahoma, as you said, are rounding out the contenders. Now, some interesting things here that Williams Winery has to sift through as he goes through his process. If he were to choose Missouri, he could cash in on name, image, likeness opportunities sooner because of a recently passed law in state that allows prospects that commit to in-state public universities or that go with in-state public universities, they're allowed to profit off their name, image, likeness. And so that's an element in addition to his great relationship with the Missouri staff. And he told me he thinks that's a program that's on the rise, has a chip on its shoulder. That's another element that's in play. Certainly, there's a lot of good NIL opportunities at places like Georgia and Oklahoma to consider down the road. Great relationship with Coach Chidera at Georgia, talks to him frequently. Coach Chavis and Coach Bates at Oklahoma, those are his guys. He knows guys in the locker room over there as well. So those are 3 programs I could see him at right now with the week to go, and he'll announce at 7 p.m. Central next Monday between those 5 programs.
All right, so Williams Winery tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central, so I guess that's 8 p.m. Eastern time. Again, that's tomorrow, and it sounds like even though we were in the lead months ago, we kind of fell off the top 3 there for a while, but then he started recontacting back and forth with Tennessee. So now they're kind of back in it, but it sounds a little bit more like it could be. And he's talking about Missouri, and of course that's where he's from, and they can pay him early because they did pass a law, and I actually did a video on that where they passed a law so they could go ahead and pay players, and it would supersede any NCAA rules. So even if they brought in an NCAA rule that said, no, you cannot be paying people early before they get there, no, you can go ahead and do that in Missouri. And so Georgia, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. So we'll find out tomorrow on him. All right, folks, breaking news. Sometimes you've got to do that when you're recording a video. Something will happen while you're actually doing all the work. And that's exactly what happened with Williams Winery. We do have a crystal ball prediction from Steve Wiltfong, also Alan True, and they are picking Missouri. I guess that early money made a big difference. So I'm going to go ahead and call that breaking news. So the fact Steve Wiltfong put that out there last minute like that, within 24 hours, that's not a good sign for any of the other teams. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. That's pretty strong. So anyway, that is breaking news. So I'm going to continue on with this video. Now we're going to talk about two teams that are really doing well, and they flipped a bunch of 5-stars. We talk about Auburn, who just recently flipped a 5-star from Georgia and one from Alabama, and now they're in big time on Cam Franklin, a guy that we were in the lead for. And you can see here, they've actually got Auburn in the lead for him now. They're at 59%, we're at 30%. They have been surging for him. And like I said, they just flipped 2 5-stars, one from Georgia and Alabama. So they are a problem. They've obviously opened up the bank vault, and they're like, okay, we got to get some players in here for freeze. And they're spinning the dough. And this is Locked On Auburn with Zach Blackerby, and this is their expert Brian Smith. And let's see what they have to say about Cam Franklin and Auburn.
Out with Brian Smith, Locked On Recruiting Insider and Expert. And Brian, we'll get to Jalewis Solomon. I want to hear your thoughts on how Auburn pulled off that last-second heist. South Carolina's still not over it, which is totally okay with me. We'll also get your thoughts on Auburn's 2024 class. A few guys have committed since we last spoke. But first thing, let's talk about some of these big targets that apparently are committing in the next week or two. Let's start with Camarion Franklin, the 5-star defensive lineman. Your thoughts on him as a player, and then also what are you hearing about who he could possibly commit to?
The 4 schools still in it for the big fella are Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn, and Miami. Based on, I followed his recruitment as close as anybody's this year because I cover Miami. He's been there 5 times. He's been to Ole Miss like 8. His visit schedule has been crazy. Auburn has made the biggest surge of late, and I think they've got a great shot at him. I don't know what exactly Auburn is selling, but when kids visit there, they love it. Solomon, obviously, being a kid, we'll talk about in a second about that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
As a player, the question with him is, where does he end up? Strong side in, inside, rotate back and forth. But he is a man-child. So I've seen him work out with Jason Taylor, the former Hall of Famer. He's at the University of Miami now. This is a kid you just can't teach, and it's why all these schools are going after him. I think he's going to play early no matter where he goes. I mean, if I had to guess, I'm going to say Auburn or Miami. On the trend, I think he would have committed to Ole Miss already. He lives like less than an hour for there.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, there's nothing else they can show him. Tennessee was allegedly the leader for a while, but that was before Miami, and now Auburn has trended. So I'm going with one of the last 2 right there.
Yeah, Auburn feels really good about their chances with them. I'm sure Miami staff feels really good about their chances with them.
So Auburn's feeling good about Cam Franklin, and he's planning on committing August the 19th. So what's that, like a week from now? Yeah, it's a Saturday, so almost a week from now. So we'll find out about him, but it sounds like Auburn thinks they've got him in the bag, and they're coming off 2 5-stars that they flipped. Again, one from Bama and Georgia. So they're getting pretty good at this sneaking around and grabbing 5-stars. This guy's not even committed, though, so this would be more legit, but they're obviously throwing the bag around. But, of course, we'll see how that goes. It kind of reminds me a little bit. You know what happened with Texas A&M? They started throwing money at players like crazy, and that kind of blew up in their face. Miami did the same thing last year. That kind of blew up in their face a little bit. Didn't really seem to help them because it creates problems when you start throwing big money at recruits that haven't played a down. You remember you've got 85 other guys on that team, or 84, and they're going to know how much they're making. And when 1 or 2 guys comes in, or 4 or 5, making a ton of money and making way more than the other guys, that can be kind of demotivating to all those other fellows are like, I'm getting like scraps. And this guy's never played a down, and he's getting, the mansion. So it can create all kinds of dissension in a team. Tennessee has to be careful with that. They've already got, a big-time player that's making a lot of money who is reportedly Nico. Then I'm sure Joe's making some good bucks, and they've got some other players. So you got to be careful where you start just paying people that aren't even on the team. It can get tricky. So I think they're trying to be careful at UT how they spend their money, and they don't have unlimited money. And I'm not saying these other teams do either. They're just probably tired of being in the doldrums, and they're like, we've got to get back in the game. The NIL deal, as much as people don't like it or do like it, it will level the playing field because teams like Auburn, FSU can now get in the game where they've been in the doldrums for years, and now they're right back in it because they can throw around some money. And now those players won't be going to Alabama and Georgia and hope, like I said, we may lose a player because of it with this Cam Franklin fella. But anyway, let's talk about FSU because they've been flipping 5-stars as well. And I was watching Matt be great, and he thinks he knows why they're getting all these players.
In the country, not just Florida State, everywhere in the country are doing this. Y'all can say I'm dry snitching all you want, but notice I didn't even tell you who the player is, and you'll never be able to guess it. And there's many more comments I can read, but I do want to address this, and this is the main point I'm making this video. I saw so many people saying, and I had a ton of people tweeting at me, "Oh, Matt, oh yeah, what about your team, Alabama? Like, y'all ain't never paid players, like y'all ain't never done nothing shady." Well, I can tell the cinnamon roll fans that watched the previous video, they got selective hearing, because I even stated in that video that Alabama has been paying players for years, and they've been buying them Camaros since 2008. I'll be the first person to tell you that Alabama's been doing shady stuff since 2008. It's just all under the table, and somehow, someway, it's not regulated. The bottom line is, I don't care what team you root for. If you don't think your favorite team, if you go for like a big-time SEC or ACC, Big 12, Pac-12 school, isn't doing some shady stuff, you don't live in reality. Every single program out here doing shady stuff. Now, the degree of shady stuff, that's a different ball game, and that's a gray area. I think when it comes to Alabama, they don't really go all out, whereas Tennessee a couple years ago, yeah, they was doing extremely shady stuff, and that's why they got caught.
How dare you!
I could not be more offended. That is unbelievable. We would never, ever pay any players to play football.
Liar!
Okay, maybe Jeremy Pruitt might have paid a few players and broken a few regulations, 180. The important thing is that that's not happening anymore, and plus it's legal. So anyway, now that I'm unoffended, okay, I think that's the right word. Let's get back to the program.
But as far as it goes for this said Florida State recruit that Florida State is paying weekly, he even called me up after the video, and he was reading some of the comments, and we were laughing about it. Because a lot of people were saying, well, Matt, why would this said recruit tell you that? Because then that'd mess it up for him. They'd quit paying him. And yet again, guess some of y'all got selective hearing. This said recruit isn't even committed to Florida State. It's not like if they tell them in a couple months, hey, we're going to cut you off and we're not going to give you any more checks, it's going to affect his future. He's not committed there. Me sharing that story isn't me being a hater. It's me telling you what's going on. It's the facts. Do some of y'all not remember that Texas A&M was paying players millions? I'm talking about a couple $1 million before they even stepped foot onto a football field. And yet, some people got the nerve to question my credibility when I state that Florida State is recruiting a kid and giving him a couple $1,000s every couple of weeks? So let me get this straight. Y'all are okay with believing that A&M was paying a couple different recruits. It was actually like 10 or 11 different recruits, millions of dollars. Y'all can believe that. But you won't believe Florida State paying a guy a couple $1,000s a month? Come on, man. Make it make sense.
Yeah, I kind of have a tendency to believe him on this. And the one thing about Matt Be Great, and that guy's got a ton of subscribers, he will jump into stuff. You know, if it's controversial, he doesn't care. He'll go ahead with it and go into the deep end. And I don't even know, and he even said that in the video, I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. You can probably pay a player in high school. I don't know if that's really some no-no. I don't know. The way NIL is right now, it's the wild, wild west. So we don't know what you can and can't do. Then you've got states making their own rules saying you can pay players and the NCAA can't block it. So like Missouri, for example. So there's so much going on with NIL and players getting paid and all that it's just going to be the way it's going to be. I don't know how they're going to be able to control it. And that was one of the things everybody was talking about, is that it's going to be kind of crazy for a while. And eventually they'll probably get a handle on it. But for the next few years, it's probably going to be pretty nuts. And you're going to have players getting flipped at the last minute. And what you're going to have to do is just build up a great program. And you're going to have to pay a good quality amount of money to get the players. And then you're going to lose some and gain some. It'll just be the way it is. And hope that your coaching staff can handle it. And I feel real good about UT regardless. And if you do lose a player over money, that's not necessarily the worst thing that ever happened. Because again, look at Texas A&M. They brought in all those players. They were promised all that money, and it just blew up, and they wound up having to suspend a bunch of players, and the team was totally demotivated, and it was a mess, and they went 5-7 with some of the best talent in the country. So anyway. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with Winery, and then also next week with Cam Franklin, and we'll see how all this plays out. I'm shocked that players are getting paid. And we definitely got some pilfering going after these guys. And that's just the way it is. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be able to continue to cover the Vols and all this SEC and the NIL and recruiting and all that. And it's going to be a little messy at all times. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I'd appreciate it. And right over here's most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll love. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.